So welcome everybody to a really special chat we're going to have tonight with Mike Muscala. Mike, I really appreciate you being here, taking the time out to join us tonight and answer a few questions. This was an initiative put forward by the Student Athlete Advisory Council, and I think it's a great idea, and really pleased that you were able to fit us into your schedule. So thanks a lot, first of all, for being here with us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
So Oklahoma City Thunder is the team you play for. When things went down and the NBA suspended play, where exactly were you? And tell the story of how your team was quarantined, I believe.
Yeah, we were kind of at the ground zero for NBA's suspension rather, if you will. We were about to play the Utah Jazz. The literally pregame intro or warm-ups, everything's done. About to tip the ball, and our head trainer came running out. And long story short, a player on their team had tested positive, so they canceled the game. Then we were kind of screened before we were able to go home. And then literally, I think an hour or two later, the NBA had suspended all games. And we were, kind of put under like a self-isolate, quarantine kind of order for about a week as we were awaited our results. Luckily, no one on the team tested positive for it. But yeah, then that was mid-March. And then I pretty much just headed home to Minnesota, where I'm from, right when I got the news. And I've been here for about the last month.
So your season gets cut short, just like a lot of our student athletes on the call tonight with us. How have you dealt with that, just being away from the game, away from your teammates, and in trying to accomplish still the training that you need to do to stay in shape when this thing ends and things potentially work their way back to some form of normalcy?
Yeah, we're kind of in a unique situation because there's still talk about salvaging this season. We had finished about, 3/4 of the regular season games. And, the team I was on, the Thunder of Oklahoma City, we were the 5th seed in the West for playoffs. The top 8 teams go to the playoffs. So, we were having a pretty good year, and we were excited for the playoff opportunity. But, obviously when something like this happens, there's bigger things that are at play and more important things. So I think, personally during this time, I luckily have like a little gym I put together for myself here. I'm kind of in a rural part of Minnesota, so I've been used to kind of training here on my own. But I really had some fun. The strength staff from the Thunder have sent items to work on, just like I'm sure a lot of you guys here. You've been kind of receiving workout plans, to do in whatever capacity you can from wherever you are right now. Whether that's body weight stuff in a room. I'm sure you guys have been, working with your coaches and teammates in that manner. But personally, I've been having fun just kind of combining a mix of the program with some creativity on my own end, and kind of keeping it refreshing, keeping it exciting. Being able to create my own workouts here and there has been a big help for me.
What are some of those things, Mike, that you've done that might be different, that some of our student athletes might be able to take advantage of?
I'll tell you one thing that actually, because I thought about this morning, it just kind of happened, but I thought I would mention it tonight, is like, and it's just a simple exercise. Like I'm sure, many have done it before, is like doing like the alphabet on a medicine ball or on a BOSU ball, if you will, balance ball. And usually I go down A, B, C, D, E, whatever. So today I just went up. I went backwards from Z, and I have not done the alphabet backwards many times, recited it. And it kind of got my brain going in a way where I was like, okay, now I'm kind of like frustrated and I'm having to think this through while I'm fatigued. And I thought that was like a cool way to kind of mimic a game where you have this mental, maybe frustration, elation, anger, whatever. And then combined with the physical aspect, which I think a lot of us are probably missing right now. We're able to do workouts, get a sweat in a way, in our own way, whatever that is. But sometimes having that, that mental aspect goes away. So I think finding ways that we can, we're all smart here. I feel like we can, and we all enjoy a good mental challenge. So I feel like that's a good thing to try for a workout.
So let me mention before I ask Mike my next question. So for the student athletes that are listening to the call, if you have a question for Mike yourself, feel free to drop it in the chat area, and we'll get to those after we get through the questions we have here up front for Mike. So Mike, now that you're away from the team and you're away from the normalcy of maybe team meetings and a regiment and a schedule, how do you stay healthy? I mean, are you watching what you eat and doing that kind of thing? How you maintain that level of health?
Honestly, I'm really trying to pay attention to my mental health right now. I think physically I'm working out 5 or 6 times a week, but from a diet standpoint, I'm trying to get creative. I'm trying to cook a lot of my own food, try new recipes, and eat good, like eat good tasting food. I think that's been fun for me, and having more time to kind of experiment with food at whatever level it is. But I think more so the health, I think for me has been on the mental health standpoint. But I think, having a good workout regimen and like even doing a 30-minute little circuit that you could do around your place, getting creative with what's around your room or your house or outdoors. There's a lot of creative little circuits you could put together. I think having that, just as we all know, having that kind of workout high goes a long way throughout a day and gives you something to build off of too for it during your day when this time now it's like we really don't have much going on.
And in terms of the mental health, one of the things to go along with that is, how do you keep yourself highly motivated when you're not around your teammates and you're on your own? How has that gone for you?
I mean, in a way, I'm trying to look at the positive of my situation. I'm not going to lie. There's times where I get frustrated when I wish the NBA would just make a decision on the season. I wish they would just say, here's the plan. But I get that there's a lot of variables in this thing and that, there's a lot at stake in terms of and logistically it's a challenge. So I think I'm trying to look at the positives and say that, okay, if we are going to come back at some level, this season later and be able to salvage it, well, hey, that gives me something in the short term to kind of prepare for and train for and have on my mind. I think about like, well, if the NBA had just canceled the season, that means I wouldn't be back preparing for the next season until, being in Oklahoma until September. And that's a long time to kind of have with and to try to train for. So I'm trying to look at the positives of my situation, and I would challenge, the student athletes here to think about that too. I'm sure it's probably frustrating for a lot of you who, your season was cut short or however it was affected, but I think there are positives in all the situations.
Well, that's one of the questions that came to mind was, if you were in this situation that our current student athletes are in, and you had their spring student athletes had their season cut short, but then they were given an extra year of eligibility because of the situation, how would you approach that?
If I was a student athlete,
If that were you,
another year of eligibility.
Yep.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that would be, I guess I hadn't thought of that, but I mean, I would feel grateful. I think, you're able then to continue learning at a place like Bucknell where, I miss, regularly not being there now, and realizing when I was a student, all the resources and learning opportunities that were available to me. So I would just say that as someone who graduated in 2013, 7 years ago, if you do have that opportunity, I think that's a blessing.
And then in terms of the frustrations you have with the NBA, how are you getting communication about what is happening? Is it coming through your agent, through your coaching staff, teammates? What's the communication channel like right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to talk to as many people as I know and I feel like have good information or good opinions on this as I can, talking to my agent, talking with Chris Paul on our team, who's the president of the Players Association. And I've sat in on a conference call with the NBPA to discuss, kind of what options are, what the situation is. We have team meetings on Zoom with the Thunder once a week. And just trying to pick people's brains, trying to learn as much as I can about the situation and trying to be a voice and part of the plan for the season. I personally have my own viewpoints on it, but just trying to hear everyone else's and try to make the best decision for everyone involved.
Are you guys hearing much as players from fans and the fan base at this time, or how is that going?
I'm to be honest, I'm not on social media, so I don't get a lot of. I prefer so for me personally, I'm not getting much of any fan interaction, because that would have to be all online at this point. I think for me, I'm more of an in-person, in terms of that with fans. But I know, I'm assuming that, even just seeing like the ratings that came in for, the Chicago Bulls documentary and hearing how much people love that, obviously we're all starving for content right now. And it's just a matter of, how do we do that in a safe and sustainable way? And that's, I think, something that is equally frustrating as it is motivating and exciting, because it's like we have to find ways to get creative.
So what recommendations do you have for our student athletes in terms of while they're home and they're away from their teammates and they're away from, Bucknell as well, because that's one of the things that everybody misses is being around each other, interacting here on campus. How do you stay connected to all of that other than the Zoom call? I mean, the Zoom call has become something that we have all grown to either love or hate, depending on how many you have to do. But how else do you suggest that people stay connected and focused on their sport and their maybe their schoolwork?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, because everyone, connects and socializes in different ways. But I think with technology the way it is now, it is pretty amazing how many different ways you can socialize through a common interest. Like for me, I'm not like going to say I'm super proud of this, but growing up, I played a lot of video games, and now I have entered back into that realm a little bit, because just being able to keep up with buddies or teammates or former teammates, and the social aspect of that and the teamwork aspect of it, the games have gotten to a point where it's almost like it can be good from a social standpoint, and not being afraid to dive into those things that we usually are too busy for when we're on campus full time and in our respective sport, for a majority of the time too. And I think I've kind of just tried to take that into a workout standpoint, where it's like, hey, can you reach out to a friend of yours on the team that you're on, and maybe kind of come up and get creative with some workouts you guys could do together, and share videos, I've been trying to like record videos of my jumping motion recently, just to see like, hey, are there some areas where I could have better form? And I think you could talk to each other about things like that. Maybe you could look back at tape from last season or years prior, and talk about what went well, what didn't, from an individual and a team standpoint. I think there are a lot of ways.
So you mentioned before we started, maybe some people were on board at that point, but you were talking about where you would be at this point in the season, and would probably be prepping for the playoffs. Trying to think how I would want to say this. Do you miss that right now? I can't even imagine just sitting at home as an NBA player, not being around the teammates and not having any of that focus of the fact that you might be in the playoffs at this point. Well, what do you look forward to next?
Yeah, no, it's a weird feeling, and I'm trying as hard as I can to fight the comfortability that I may be experiencing with this new type of lifestyle. I don't know. It kind of scares me in a way. I think, I love human interaction, and I love learning from people, and I love doing that in person, but obviously it's something that we just can't do at this time. And it's because of, for health reasons. And I guess, I just, I am missing it, but I'm also looking at the silver lining of it, and thinking how, sometimes during a season, an NBA season especially, it's a long season, there's a lot of games, and sometimes you get fed up with it, and you get frustrated with it, and what have you. So I think having something like this, where it's taken away from you and taken away from all of us, in our respective sports, it's like, for me, I've kind of like realized how much I do love the game and how much it has helped me. And even in a time like this, where it gives me something to work towards or to prepare for, even, the circumstances are the way they are, I've definitely found a new appreciation for the game.
there is talk that if athletic leagues do resume play, being NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever it may be, of playing games with no fans. How do you even wrap your head around that as an NBA player?
Yeah, that would be crazy. Our head coach yesterday said that, if that happens, when that happens, whatever it is, that it's going to take some players who really love the game, who are going to do well in that scenario. And I would just, for me personally, I've just been thinking about how much I think the game does for me and for others by watching it. Even though there may not be fans that are able to be in the stands, the amount of people that could watch on TV or follow online, whether it's scores, box scores, social media, that's still going to be there. And I think there's still going to be that demand for it and that enjoyment from it. So I just think about that and think that even though it would be weird, to be in the gym with no fans, it's like, well, this is still, going to be entertaining for a lot of people. And that's how we have to look at it.
So the batch of questions that we received from a lot of the student athlete advisory committee members has different, 3 different areas. And one grouping is Bucknell specific questions for you. So I'm going to shift you back a little bit to your time at Bucknell, if we can. And what was your mindset entering your senior year as a student athlete at Bucknell? What was your plan in your head, or that roadmap that you wanted to follow entering that senior year?
Going into my senior year, yeah, I definitely knew I wanted to try to get drafted in the NBA. That was the first time, going into a season where that was my individual goal. But, more than anything, I wanted to win as many games as we could on the basketball team and go as far as we could, in the NCAA tournament. Once we got there, that was always the goal for senior year. And just to try to, embrace and as much as I could, just one more year on campus. I think it can be still hard even as a senior to try to soak in everything that's there for you on campus, because there are so many good resources, and we do kind of get caught into our routine and our focus of our sport and, and our studies, because there's not much free time in between. But we all know what that's like as student athletes, and I think we take pride in that. So even if that's kind of what it is for a senior year, is like, hey, this is going to be, a challenging year, but I'm going to push myself, to have a good year, and whatever that means for you. Maybe that means being a great teammate if you're not necessarily getting a lot of playing time, or just, picking up on little ways you can help the team. I think, college sports, and especially at Bucknell, it's a special bond you have with all of your teammates. And I definitely miss that. So I would say for a senior, just to keep that in mind.
So that's a good segue to the next question. So thinking about all the things you accomplished at Bucknell, both as an athlete and a student, and you mentioned that there's not a whole lot of other time to do a lot else, but is there something you wish you had done more of when you look back at your Bucknell experience that you think you might have missed out on, that, you would give advice to the current student athletes to, maybe stretch yourself a little bit in this direction?
For sure. Yeah. There's a whole host of things. I think it's hard to look back now and say that, because I think as years go on, you end up becoming interested in different things, and your interests shift. But I would just say to keep an open eye on what you can do socially, from an entertainment and relaxation standpoint, when you have free time, because, there still is plenty of free time as a student athlete. And, what are you doing on a Friday or a Saturday night when hey, it's like the partying's always going to be there, but let's be real. Like, there are a lot of other cool things you can do that are they might curate or develop an interest or activity that you can have with you for a lot of your life. That I think Bucknell can be like the spur of that, and it can be, it can foster that, which I guess I didn't really pick up on that, or I didn't appreciate that or take advantage of that as much as I could have.
And then taking that to the athletic side, specifically in your training and the way you approached the game while you were at Bucknell, is there something you either did that you thought worked really well that you could give advice on, or is there something you didn't do enough of, or you didn't maybe do the way when you look back on it that you thought you could have done better in terms of your training?
I think one thing I did well is I always push myself hard. I liked the schedule of being a student athlete at Bucknell. I thought that being busy in terms of your class schedule and then having to fit in, your strength, session, your individual session, your team practice, your game, whatever it may be, you kind of had to fit that into a window with respects to your classes and your exam, prep and group projects and everything. So I thought that kind of created an environment where it was like, okay. And even Coach Paulson from the team when I was there was like, okay, these 2 hours is like, you're here. Like, this is basketball, this is your practice time, like commit to it, go hard at it. We can live with the results, but give it your full attention. So I think that's something that I think I've carried with, to the pros, and it's helped. An area where I feel like I wish I did better at was, I would say, just not being too hard on myself. I think I put a lot of expectation and pressure on myself at Bucknell for whatever reason. And I think that detracted from my ability to enjoy a lot of the experience or kind of relish in it, and it can be hard when you're in the thick of it and you're in mid-season and you got exams and stuff piling up. But it's like, we're all in, and to be able to go to Bucknell, I think, and have that experience is great. So it's like, I think I wish I would have reminded myself more of that and been like, hey, everything's going to be fine. Like, you'll be okay.
And finally, before I turn it over to Jen for our chat room questions or additional questions, you had a special day here this past season that thankfully we were able to get in before everything came to a halt. And I'm referring to when we retired your jersey. What was that experience like for you? What was it like coming back with the fans showing their support? Just speak a little bit about that weekend.
Yeah, well, first I want to say thank you to you, Todd, for being a great host to me during that time and preparing everything. And it was special, for real, for me and my family. It was during our All-Star break, so came right from New Orleans, and it was nostalgic, and I definitely picked up on a lot of things that had changed on campus and a lot of things that had stayed the same. I hadn't seen a game in Soika in many years, so it was almost like too much, but it was all from a good standpoint. And like I said, I can't thank you enough and everyone else who made that possible. So I appreciate it.
I was just curious if your hand has recovered from signing about 10,000 autographs that night. I felt like you were there for hours doing that, and I know everybody appreciated that.
Oh, gladly. Yeah. No, it was awesome. Yeah.
Jen, do we have some questions that we might want to throw out?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Okay.
Mike, one of the student athletes was wondering, you talked a little bit about staying creative and cooking. Do you kind of set up a schedule for yourself during the day, or how do you kind of structure your time now that your coaches and your team's not telling you what to do every day?
Yeah, good question. I do try to schedule my workout every day in the morning, just to have that as something to get up for. And something that I can structure my day around. And then in terms of like an eating standpoint, I found it kind of, interesting that like I'm kind of eating on a different schedule because, we're used to kind of moving around in a different way. And so as far as the cooking goes, I'm just kind of embracing it, not fighting. And I think as an athlete, a lot of times we eat not because we're hungry, but because we're about to practice or like work out or, play a game. And we're kind of used to eating like that. So I've kind of enjoyed just like not eating like that and having some more time to try some new foods.
We also heard a lot about your mental health and that it's important to you, which is great. We talk about that a lot here, and what really works for you to help kind of keep that in check, both on your athlete side and also in this, COVID self-isolation space. Are there apps or trainings or breathing or meditation? Like what helps you?
Yeah. I used to use an app called Headspace quite a bit. It's a meditation app. And now, I do my own meditation practices. meditational practices. And I find that to be really helpful for me just to slow down and kind of be conscious of just my breathing and what I have to already to be grateful for in my life. And, other things, I would say just, I don't know, reading, finding a book that I maybe have forgotten about that's sitting around, something that is just kind of calming and requires focus. Even doing like a crossword puzzle or something. These things that are kind of slow moving that we're not, at least for me, I'm not used to doing on a daily basis because I'm always kind of go, go, go. So finding some slower things that I can do just to kind of sit back and focus on.
You talked about ways that you're trying to connect with your teammates. Do you find yourself kind of helping others motivate, each other to stay in shape in that way? Or do you guys have like team Zoom calls? Like, how are you guys helping each other stay focused? Because you seem really focused, but I'm sure some of your teammates are struggling too.
Yeah. Good question. I think just checking in with guys goes a long way. I think, that's kind of why we have our weekly team meetings. And yesterday, I think our coach did a cool thing. He went through and he asked a different question, kind of player specific to each player on the team. And it got guys to, to kind of speak up and speak their mind and kind of be on the spot a little bit, which I think we kind of all are missing right now. I think having that little bit of pressure on you is good for you. We're kind of missing that from sports right now, kind of having that spotlight in a sense. So if there's ways you feel like you could kind of mimic that in a way, that can be a little hard to do, but that can come from just challenging, like another teammate and kind of getting competitive. Like I know we have an app. I was going to mention this, like with the Thunder, it's called Team Builder, and I think it's through the App Store. I'm not sure the details of it, but I'm sure there are other similar things. And basically, we do our workouts. Our workouts are on that app, and you can record the weights you've done for it and all that stuff. You even put videos up, so it's kind of cool. Like I've kind of gone through some of the exercises and seen what guys have done weight-wise, and it's just like I didn't even know you could do that in the app, but I thought that was kind of cool just to give you that kind of like comparative or social aspect of the workout.
Mike, there's an app that our student athletes use called The Bridge, very similar to what you're talking about. And that's been actually fun to watch some of the videos our athletes have put up on that thing. I did get another question here from somebody listening tonight who follows you pretty closely. And he said, you were obviously red hot from 3-point range when the season got stopped. Are you worried about losing that momentum with your shot?
I think, as someone who's kind of like a shooter, you always kind of get a little superstitious about stuff like that. But I'm not worried about it. I don't think about it. I'm just trying to stay in good cardio and good mental and physical health. And then I think that rhythm is something that just comes from the season. But man, it just seems like so long ago right now, but I miss it for sure.
And then to go along with the question Jen asked a second ago, in terms of staying in touch with folks, who on the team do you stay in touch with the most? I know there's one guy in that squad that you've been with for quite a while throughout your career. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, his name's Dennis Schroeder. He's from Germany. We were drafted together in 2013 to the Atlanta Hawks and played together for about 4 or 5 years there. And then our journeys we went separate for a year, and then now we're back with the Thunder together. So it's been cool. But I've also gotten pretty close with a teammate called Abdul Nader. His name's Abdul Nader. Played at Iowa State, played for the Boston Celtics. We've gotten close. And honestly, it's been interesting to hear from Chris Paul during this time and kind of pick his brain a little bit as it refers to our situation from a business side, with the Players Association and the NBA owners. And I think I've learned a lot about how, this country works and also how our league works through a time like this.
Any other questions from your end, Jen?
Yeah, we'll give you an easy one. So are you going to do a self haircut, or are you just going to grow it out fully?
I think I'm just going to keep growing it out. I had to shave the beard recently. I was getting out of hand, but I figured, hey, this is the time to let it out. get past that real awkward phase, and I'm probably still in it, but just see where it goes. So yeah, keep it going.
Okay, there was another one that just came through, and they want to know who's the best player you've played with.
Ooh,
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
yeah, that's a good question. It would be either LeBron James or Chris Paul. I would say that. Obviously for different reasons, but I mean, I played with Chris more this year because we played the whole season together. When I was with the Lakers, LeBron was injured, and we kind of the way the season ended, we didn't play much together. But I mean, those two guys are special, obviously. So between those two.
Mike, can you give us one piece of parting advice that you could give any Bucknell student athlete? Doesn't have to be anything epic, but what would you hope for them as we kind of move forward in this like new space that we don't know about, but we're all kind of still united as part of this Bucknell athletics family?
What would I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. I mean, I think just think about all the things we're learning right now, even though this is a tough time for a lot of us. I think, like for me, I feel like I've been curious and learned, a ton, in this last month and a half because of the whole pandemic. And even though it is frustrating and it's a tough time, and for a lot of people, and a lot of, it's tough for our country right now. Let's not sugarcoat it, but I just think like in a situation like this, it's so unique and it's so unprecedented that look at the bright side of like how much you can learn about yourself and others and other parts of this world that from what we're going through that you would have never otherwise learned if it wasn't for this.
Mike, we got another question in the chat room. So how much, and you answered a little bit, you touched on it a little bit, but how do you think this whole pandemic's going to change the sports world going forward, especially in terms of sports culture and economics? It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think from the way I look at it is that it's going to be I think I read something from, I check hoopstype.com a lot, and I saw an excerpt from Mark Cuban on there where he said something that like he views, the NBA and the professional leagues and I guess, most sports to have a different landscape over the next 12 months. And, the way I look at it, I think there's so many variables at play, but I think it's going to be, for the next, whether it is 12 months, a little more, a little less, I don't know, in my mind and how my gut is that, things will be quite different and there's kind of no way around it. I think when that vaccine, whenever that is, I've been trying to learn about what that's looking like. And when we're able to, I don't know public health things, and I feel like one day I think one thing, the next day another. But I think as athletes, I would just say that instead of maybe getting frustrated about how things will be different, think about you're part of a new era or a new generation, or potentially, in the near future of where the sport may be headed. And I do believe that, once the vaccines are really available and there's, not as much maybe fear around it, that things will be back to normal. I mean, I fully believe that, and in my heart of hearts. But I think that, for the next, 12 months or so, things will be quite different.
Jen, you want to ask the next one? There's another one in there.
Oh. I think it just went to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I got another one, Mike. I think we woke the masses up with these questions. You're getting a bunch now. And this one probably doesn't apply to our Bucknell student athletes because our Bucknell crowds are pretty nice usually. But this question is, what's it like playing in front of a rough crowd like Philadelphia? Really taxing hearing boos.
At first it was, I'm not going to lie, I was not used to that from the home crowd booing you or the team. And I learned early how it was going to go down after being at an Eagles game. seeing them get booed off the field, early after winning the Super Bowl the year before. But, I will say, like, playing for Philly, it can be a rough crowd, but hey, I mean, they keep it real, and I never, I'm never gonna not respect that. So I think once I kind of learned how that culture is there and that vibe is, I enjoy playing at home, and it's a heck of a place to play at when you're the visiting team. I mean, I think this season they definitely had the best home record from what I can remember. And it's hostile, it's blue collar, and it was a fun experience playing there on the home team.
Well, I don't want to keep you up too long here, Micah. We wanted to get you on for half an hour, and we've done that. And I really appreciate you joining us, as I'm sure all the student athletes do. And I know the members of the Student Athlete Advisory Council were excited that you said yes, and a lot of them are on the call here. I can see the names. So again, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Please stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you back on the court soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me, and good luck, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.